What's up, guys? I'm Laura from Reading in Bed, and this is going to be a video about Canada Reads. Now, I wasn't going to do a video about Canada Reads this year because I'm not really following Canada Reads this year. However, first of all, I noticed that Peg, the book prize maniac, had put a video up, and, you know, she's American, so I'm like, well, if Americans are talking about this, maybe I need to say something. And then she called me out specifically in her video, so okay, here I am. But like I said, since I'm not really following it this year, I don't have a lot to say about the books or the contest itself. And even if I want it to follow along or start following along, I'm already 2 hours behind. This is a 4-day competition with an hour's worth of debate, and actually a little more if you stick around for the questions from the audience and stuff. There's no way I'm going to catch up on it. So I guess what I will do is just tell you a bit about why I decided to sort of bow out this year. And I will point you to a couple of articles that I've read recently that are just sort of expanding on the points that I'm going to bring up today. So if you've listened to or read some of my Canada Read stuff over the years, you already know that I think this contest is really just kind of skewing way too hard on the social issues side of things. That is not to say that books shouldn't or can't deal with social issues. Obviously they do, and it's worth talking about and it's worth evaluating. However, what I find happening on Canada Reads, and increasingly over the couple of years I've been watching, is that it becomes less a contest of which book is the best and more a contest of which book has the most important issue that is more important than all of the other issues that all the other books are talking about. Which to me is a worthless conversation, because I think most of us who are adults can hold more than one idea or issue in our heads at the same time, and have the maturity and the critical thinking necessary to do that. I don't think there's any reason to pit issues against each other or say one is more important than the other. It often comes down to things like, well, this book's about climate change and that affects everyone in the whole world, versus, this book is about racism and racism is a big problem in Canada. And it's like, yeah, they're both problems and they both affect Canadians and people everywhere. So like, there's no point. That argument there's just no point to it. What I want to see, actually, I would love to see a lot more of, is the book actually good? Whether you take that to mean, is it entertaining? Do readers like it? Does it have literary merit, aesthetic merit, whatever, however you want to put that. But really, like, put the two together. And I think that's, like, Canada Reads used to be more of that, where it was, yeah, there was, like, sort of a social justice side to it, but it was also, what books are actually good and people should read because they like them, not because we're all going to die from climate change in a couple years or whatever. Because it's not the way real people read. I mean, I think it's the way some of us here on BookTube and on book blogs do sometimes for various challenges, but like, we're not normal readers, right? We're weird. Most people read because they want to, because it's entertaining, I guess. So that is kind of normal. That's been going on for years. But when I looked at the short list for this year's Canada Reads, and I saw that there was a book about the Holocaust and a book about the refugee crisis, I said, nope. I am not going to sit here and listen to an argument about which one of those is more important than the other. Because like I said, obviously they both are. The Holocaust, despite the fact that it was many years ago, no one has to look too hard to, see the relevance today, and that anti-Semitism and stuff still exists today. Not to mention the fact that the Holocaust will pretty soon be out of living memory, so it lends a certain urgency to memoirs like this one that are written by actual survivors. Like, there won't be that many more Holocaust memoirs written, right? And then the book about the refugee crisis, it's not actually about the refugee crisis. It is another memoir by a teenage refugee, I believe, from Iraq. And it was written with help from his high school teacher, which I won't even go there, but eyebrows are raised. But again, like, obviously it's an important issue. It's an interesting perspective, just in the same way that, a memoir written by an actual Holocaust survivor, a memoir written by an actual refugee, and a very young refugee who's going to be sort of presenting a viewpoint that we maybe don't see very often from an actual teenager who's gone through this. Important, probably worth reading. haven't read it, so I can't really, say one way or the other. But it's just knowing that that's the argument is not going to go in terms of like which book is better or handles, its issue better than others or presents it in a way that's, accessible or entertaining or unique or whatever. It's just going to be like which issue is more important and which one do Canadians need to pay attention to. And it's like, like I said, I don't care to hear that argument. So I decided not to even go there. So those were two of the books that are about real hot button issues. And I'll just quickly mention the other one that's in Canada Reads this year is Brother by David Chariandi. So this one also deals with a lot of very relevant, very contemporary social issues, immigrant experience, first-generation immigrants, racism, police brutality, all sorts of stuff. But in addition to that, it is also a really fucking good book. And again, I know that they're not really going to talk about that very much on Canada Reads, so like I kind of don't even care. But I'll just put this out here as my little PSA and my very uninformed opinion, not having read the other 4 books on the shortlist, that this is the book that should win, and it's a book that you all should read. If you sort of think I have good taste or whatever, then you can take my recommendation on this book. Now, interestingly, the other 2 books on the shortlist, neither of them, like they were both also nonfiction, also kind of memoirish, but neither were about real hot button social issues. I think one was about mental illness and one was just more of like a family kind of memoir. And lo and behold, they were the first 2 to get kicked out. So like I said, now we're going to be left with Holocaust, refugee crisis, and racism / police brutality. And again, great things to be writing about. Possibly all 3 are great books, at least one is, but I just don't want to hear the arguments that I think are going to get made on the show. Okay, so, well, I guess the one other thing I'll comment on before I point you towards a few articles is the caliber of the panelists. So this is a game show style contest where the books are defended by celebrities, and we're talking like D-list Canadian celebrities, so like Z-list, probably anywhere else. And it seems like the caliber of those celebrities has also gone down a bit. I don't want to say too much about the host because like they're trying to distance themselves from, Jian Ghomeshi was the longtime host, but unfortunately they haven't really found a good replacement. But the panelists this year, the 2 that I even like vaguely know who they are, one is the drummer from A Simple Plan, and one was apparently had a small role on Gilmore Girls. Now, A Simple Plan, I mean, I'm married to a drummer, and even I'm like, the drummer? Plus, A Simple Plan is like a watered down version of Sum 41, who themselves are like a watered down version of Gob. And if you're not Canadian, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. But, and from what I've seen in print anyway, he doesn't seem to be the most well-spoken of the panelists. Go figure. And then this guy from Gilmore Girls, unfortunately, I can't say anything about because I didn't watch Gilmore Girls. But let me say that if we are now looking towards early-aughts teen dramas for our, D-list Canadian celebrities, let me point out that Scott Speedman and Joshua Jackson are both Canadian. And this is my promise. If Benjamin Covington is a panelist on the next Canada Reads, I will get on a plane to Toronto and I will be there. But for the time being, no, I'm not too into it. So I'll now point you towards a couple other articles you can read, and then that's pretty much all I'm going to have to say about Canada Reads. There's a column in the Globe and Mail from Saturday written by Russell Smith. He's a noted cranky kind of Canlit guy. He's always sort of, poo-pooing various Canlit goings-on, and this is no exception. So he writes about basically what I just said, that like readers don't want to read so they can get lectured about something. They want to read a book that's good, and that is no longer really what Canada Reads seems to be about. It's probably paywalled, so I mean, if you're a Globe subscriber, you can check it out. It's got some more details and some more analysis. The second is actually from last year's Canada Reads. A finalist in that year was Sharon Bella, who wrote The Boat People. It's a pretty good book. She wrote a very interesting analysis of the gender dynamics on Canada Reads and how very few books written by women have won, and actually no books have won that were both written and defended by a female panelist. So, which, you know, is probably not really a coincidence. Like, it's sort of a weird stat to look at in a way, but again, whenever we're looking at gender stuff, you can kind of roughly say that women are half-ish of the population. So when you see something where there's like absolutely no representation, it's, you know, there's something going on there. So it was a very interesting blog post, and I'll link to that. We'll see how that plays out this year. And then finally, there's an article in the latest Canadian Notes and Queries. This one is available for free online. It's called No Country for Old Books. And rather than looking at the demographics of the authors and the panelists, it looks at the demographics of the books, of the finalists, and basically shows how early years of Canada Reads was really about bringing to light books that had been overlooked or perhaps had gone out of print, like maybe were very well read at one time but have fallen out of favor, or books that really never got the kind of publicity and readership that they should have. Whereas now, basically all the books that you see on Canada Reads are like front list, you know, from major publishers, have already won multiple awards. You know, 15 Dogs comes to mind. Great book. I'm glad it won Canada Reads, but it already had a Giller Prize. So, like, you know, it's just a really interesting look at how that has changed over the years. And it opens with a wonderful anecdote about the time that Justin Trudeau was a panelist on Canada Reads in 2003. I'd totally forgotten this. I think I like vaguely knew it, but didn't really know a lot about it. Now, in 2003, I don't even think he was in politics, really. Like, I'm sure he had his eye on it, but he was doing more like advocacy and, you know, stuff like that. And it actually makes sense for him to be on Canada Reads because he has an English degree, and he was, I don't think he was an English teacher. I think he was a French and drama teacher, but like, you know, he had, you know, certainly the qualifications, and he, you know, he's been a celebrity his whole life, and not even a D-list celebrity just because of who he is. So anyways, there's this anecdote about how in the final episode of that year's Canada Reads, he voted against his own book in favor of a book from Quebec, which, you know, I could make a long drawn out joke about the SNC Lavalin controversy right now, but I won't. So yeah, that was just like, as soon as I read that, I'm like, okay, you know, let's hear what else this guy has to say. And he does do a very thorough job of examining what Canada Reads has been in the past and what it's kind of turned into now. So I'll link to all those below. I'd recommend you check them out. And if you want to watch Canada Reads, it's very easy to do so. I'll put a link to the page on CBC. It's, you know, radio, TV, live streamed, etc. Sadly, I probably won't be following along too closely other than just seeing who's been kicked off and all of that. But yeah, so let me know what you think about Canada Reads, and thanks for watching.